With Stranger Things in production, we're getting an early glimpse of what Season 5 will ultimately look like, and it's wilder than ever. There's been a steady stream of pictures coming from Ross Duffer in the official account, as well as on occasion the actors. That is in addition to the various spy photos and leaked photos that are posted by Stranger Things spoilers and other similar accounts. However, Ross Duffer himself may have given us the biggest clue yet for Stranger Things 5. It was right up front with this picture. Obviously, this is Elle, you know that. But this contains a lot of big and minor clues. Right off, a lot of people thought she was back in the lab. But really nothing in this picture seems to indicate that. In fact, very obviously she's wearing a red shirt. You remember no one ever walked around the lab in red shirts and what appear to be khaki pants. Not to mention the labs are destroyed. Even if she's in the ruins, it's not going to be this bright. Yes, the background is blue, that doesn't really mean much. It's someplace well lit, but there's no reason to jump to those conclusions. It's important to note this is actually a picture of the monitor while shooting, so this screen is what the camera is pointing at. Up above you can see Millie standing right there. Unfortunately, the way the set is, you can't really make out much, though obviously this background you see here is not back up here or all around. So this is definitely a set and a partially constructed one at that. That's the reason why I don't think it's the lab, because those sets were a little more intricate. Now back to the screen. As I said, this is what the camera is shooting, which gives us an indication that this is, in some fashion, part of an actual shot in the show. Obviously this shot is right up close on her arm. Now you're used to seeing her 11 tattoo, it's part of her iconic look. However, I don't think the purpose of this shot is to give the audience another reminder that she has an 11 tattoo. What's important here is what's just above. The band on her wrist. At first, especially with this shot, it looks odd. Is that a metal wrapping or something? Barbed wire? No, it isn't. Nothing of the sort. It's actually a blue hairband that Eleven has worn on her wrist for a while now. Subtle, but there it is. It's never been mentioned in dialogue, but the hairband has had a very significant journey to here. In chronological order, you actually first see it in Hopper's flashback with Sarah. Such a cute and adorable girl. She had two blue hairbands on her pigtails as Hopper held her. Of course, she got sick. She needed chemotherapy and ultimately lost all her hair. That is traumatic for child and parent alike. Hopper made a point by taking her hairband and wearing it on his wrist. Even in the hospital, he kept it on. He was supporting his daughter. After Sarah died, he never took it off. It was his connection to her. He kept wearing it. Even while hiding Elle in his cabin, he still kept it on. He never forgot his little girl. Except, as you remember, Elle left. She didn't want to be cooped up in the cabin. She sought out her mother. That was hard on Hopper. He lost his little girl for a second time. It's almost too hard to think about. He was sad, desperate. He wished for her to come back. Well, back she came. This was clearly an important reunion. It meant something. At some point off screen, Hopper gave Elle the hairband. She has it on while dancing with Mike at the end. She continued to wear it all through season 3, whether she was with Max or Mike or whoever. It was a gift from Hopper and she kept it close. Even after she thought Hopper was gone, she didn't take it off. Especially then, she didn't take it off. This point was similar to when Hopper had it on wishing Elle would come back. It was her connection to him. She's not letting that go. And so she didn't. She wore it in California. She had it all the way until they got back to Hawkins, at the hospital, and of course at the very end. The only time she didn't have it on was in the lab for her retraining. It's a bond that went from Sarah to Hopper to Elle. Anyway, this image is important because you can see this will continue into season 5, with one major difference. Apparently for the first time, well, this. The hairband is clearly coming undone. It specifically looks like something cut one of the 3 strands. Now we can speculate as to what it is. An accident with a knife doesn't quite have the emotional weight, but the Upside Down is filled with all sorts of wild creatures. One of them may have attacked Elle and in her panic covering her face, ripped one of the strands. That is logical and a straightforward explanation. Except I'm getting a more significant vibe from all this. Like I said, this shot is specifically on her arm. That's the focus. you realize the deeper purpose of this shot is to specifically emphasize that the hairband is starting to fray. The first strand is broken. In the context of Stranger Things, this has important symbolic significance. This is the last season, and there's a good likelihood something really tragic may happen, or at the very least almost happens, which builds all the same suspense and drama. This image could be the beginning of a motif for Season 5. That is to say, as the fighting gets deeper and more intense, there are cuts between Elle and Hopper. For example, maybe they disagree on what action to take, or maybe something comes up between them. These trials and challenges build up the tension and conflict. While there are literal separations and cuts on screen, the bracelet slowly comes apart as the symbolic representation of what is happening. This moment is anywhere from episodes 1 to 3 based on shooting schedule. I tend to think this is an episode 2 shot. That is, episode 1 starts off with the events and the time jump, and then episode 2 is when everything starts going bad. It's not over yet, but you can physically and literally see the bonds that held key characters together are slowly coming apart. There is an alternate, somewhat darker theory, that is that the strands ultimately represent someone directly. That means if one of the strands is broken, that person already died or is otherwise removed. Since Elle is wearing the bracelet, it would be someone close to her. An obvious thought would be Max, who is clearly not in a good position. However, it's doubtful she survives Season 4 just to die at the beginning of Season 5. But the cutting of the strand could be symbolic of her being lost. Another possibility is something happens to Mike. He's probably the next closest person to Elle. Now maybe he hasn't died. Maybe Mike got trapped in the Upside Down. There's separation. And a separation so soon after reuniting would be symbolic of the people Elle is close to slipping away. This would set up a finale where Elle has to make a major move. Maybe she has to sacrifice herself to save the 3 people who the cut strands represent. Or it could be a motivation to do the impossible action she has been avoiding the whole time. The third possibility involves the history of the hairband itself. It was Sarah's, then Hopper's connection to her. Hopper gave it to Elle. What if the strands symbolize Elle? She is getting closer to death, perhaps cheating it. As the hairband breaks, she's losing her connection to Hopper. It is a different spin on how Sarah had it, but then could no longer wear it, as she lost her hair. But just as Sarah died slowly, maybe that is what happens to Elle in Season 5. Her death comes slowly. Think of the strands as her life strands. When the third strand breaks, Elle is no more. Of course, maybe it's not literal death. Instead, maybe it's just Elle losing her powers like what happened in Season 3. Maybe each hit she takes, which coincidentally causes a strand to break, zaps her power. That would be cool enough to like this video for sure. Even though Elle got her powers back, we know it's not a permanent thing. Considering a very possible conclusion to the show would be Vecna is defeated, but Elle loses her powers again, and this time for good. It would sort of make the story work in the wider context of the world and timeline and such. So this connection isn't Elle dying literally like Sarah, but Elle dying metaphorically by losing her powers. But whatever comes of it, there is clearly a tone coming in Season 5. It will be dark and ominous. While other seasons often started on a somewhat upbeat nature, that will not be the case here. The unraveling is underway. Vecna is winning. He showed Nancy his vision for the future, and a lot of that will be coming true. The pressure is on. After you hit the subscribe button, let me know how you think the bracelet is going to play out. It is very important for sure. Have a great day. I'll see you at the next watch party.